Incident solar radiation analysis using Revit. Okay, before we get into Revit and the actual tools, just want to do a fairly quick recap over some of the kind of metrics associated with daylight and the sun. So these were covered in the building physics lecture last week, but not all of you attend that lecture. I have put that lecture on Mole in full if you're interested, but just a quick recap. So this is a graph looking at the illuminance that we achieve in the UK from an overcast sky. And so we're talking now about a cloudy sky with no direct sunshine. And the key thing, really, the key issue from this graph is just to reinforce that in summer, at midday, the horizontal illuminance from the overcast sky, which is shown by this up here, is 3 times that of winter. Okay, so in summer it's about 18,000 lux, and in winter it's more like sort of 6,000 lux at the same time of the day. Different times of the day you have different brightnesses of the sky. So important thing there to note is just the sky illuminance changes dramatically throughout the year and the day. And the key factor to remember is that illuminance is directly proportional to solar radiation, or what we call insolation, in other words energy. So if you're getting more light from the sky or from the sun, you're getting more energy, which potentially can mean heat in your building, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on the specifics of the situation. So we'll then just another quick graph here looking at, again for the UK, using the weather files from Finningley, which is very close to Sheffield. Again here just showing the kind of range of luminance that we get from our sky. So the yellow bars are the direct normal, so that's the direct sunshine, and the bar here indicates the range of readings that you could get on a particular time in the year. So for example, in July here you could get a reading all the way down from 0. So in other words, there is no direct normal, no direct sunshine. Or you could go up all the way up to sort of 45,000 lux, with the mean average here at about 18,000. Now the green is the global horizontal, so this adds in any reflected sky components, that's any light bouncing off the hemisphere of the sky or clouds, and so you get a larger figure. Again, a huge range. So on the same day in July, different years or different days in July, you could have an illuminance level of 5,000 lux all the way up to 70,000 lux. So a huge range. So it really, I just put those graphs in just to kind of highlight the importance of why we simulate the radiation levels from the sun in the UK, because it does vary so dramatically throughout the year. Other parts of the world, you may have a more consistent energy level from the sun throughout the year. Okay. Right, let's go now into Revit. So I've opened Revit 2016 here, and this is our sample file, which is our kind of slightly incomplete model of the Arts Tower and the forecourt. So here's the Arts Tower here. Here's some of the surrounding buildings, and as I say, it's incomplete because part of your tasks for your assignment is to complete the model and to add any further adjacent buildings or trees or any other kind of items that you think you might add to that site to benefit your submission. And if you look through some of the example submissions from last year, you'll have seen the kind of quality of sites that the students have developed. Okay, but for now you just get that basic one from me. Okay, now one thing to note is we are now performing solar analysis in Revit. We're not doing it in Vasari as we did in previous years. AutoCAD, they have finally added the solar analysis into Revit, and which coincides, of course, with the fact that they no longer offer Vasari. So last year we did this in Vasari, this year it's in Revit, and I believe it's much better actually. Okay, so we're going to go through some of those tools, but I think first of all I better just quickly show you where to find the plugin. So the solar analysis is a plugin, and we've got it installed on the computers on floors 18 and 19 in the Arts Tower. You can install it yourself onto your own machines if you like. So if you, I think you can actually just Google for, type into Google Revit solar analysis, and I think that should take you there. There we are. There we are. Takes you to the beta, the Autodesk beta area, the Autodesk Labs, which is the area where Autodesk kind of give away beta software for users to test, and then at some point they sometimes remove those betas and they become part of the full version. Now, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with this solar analysis beta. There was a rumor that they were going to finish it and that they would no longer offer it, but I've not had any confirmation from them. So all we know is that it still exists now. I mean, as I've said before, software changes all the time. There's not really anything you can do about that. You've just got to adapt with the software as it goes. So at the moment, this is the software we're supporting on this module, and I think it works very well with our integrated workflow. At some point it will probably change, but for now this is what we've got. So click on Join the Technology Preview here, and then it will probably ask you to sign in. Sign in here to your Autodesk account, and that should take you through to the software download page. Now I've already downloaded it, so I'm not going to do it again. Basically what happens, here we are, where are we, downloads. So you've got some basic information there. You can click on the download here. I'm not going to do it. I don't know what will happen if I try and download it twice. Download it, run the installer. You won't see anything. You probably need to shut Revit down while you do that, and then what it will do is it will install the plugin directly into Revit 2016. And if you then go under your Analyze tab, you will now have some additional solar analysis tools over here. Okay, this plugin brings in both the solar analysis, as in the radiation analysis, and it also brings in the light analysis plugin, which we'll look at in a later session. Okay, so there we are. We're pretty much ready to go. So the solar analysis tools work in a 3D view. They will not work in a perspective. If I go to a perspective view here, there's our perspective view. As you see here, the solar analysis tools are grayed out. They don't want to work in a perspective, which is fine. Okay, so we go back into our 3D view, and first thing we should really do is let's duplicate this view and give it a logical name, because we're going to run the simulation on these views and then put them onto some sheets for export. So right click on the view, duplicate view, duplicate with detailing. I normally do by default. Sorry, it does this because I've had to reduce my screen resolution. It sort of does this odd thing when it flickers about. So there's our view, 3D copy to. Right click on that, rename, and let's call it solar radiation. We'll just call it solar radiation 1 for now. We can always rename it, give it a better name later once we perhaps know what we're testing. Okay, so I've got a view here. If we hold down Shift and the middle mouse button, we can pan, as we've sort of looked at before. I've got my shadows on. We probably will end up turning those off, but I'll just leave them on for now. And next thing is we just want to make sure we've got our location set correctly, because that is important. So you've got a few ways of doing this. One is, excuse me, if you go to the Manage tab at the top here, Location, and you can, I think we've covered this before, you can use the Internet Mapping Service, or you can just search for an address in here, and that brings up the list of the closest weather stations. Probably expand this window a bit. No? Maybe. Just expand that. So here are our nearest weather stations, and we're just going to go with the one that's nearest to us for now. That's already in. You can have a little check of your weather data in there. Okay, just ignore that last one. So we're okay there, we're good to go. It was already set in the right place. But obviously that is important, because the parameters of the sun and the sky will come from your location. Okay. Right. So we've made a a copy here of our view. So let's start activating the solar radiation. In fact, I'll just hit save there. Okay. Go to the Analyze tab and click on your solar radiation button here. That brings up a toolbar, and you can drag that to the side, because that will kind of stay in place for a little while. Okay, we've got some options under here. Analysis, custom, we'll just leave that like that for now. And okay, the next thing is you're prompted to know which surfaces here do you want to analyze. If we look under that, you can have all mass faces, all roof exterior surfaces, or user selection. Sorry, let's cancel that for now. So all mass faces will select all the mass faces in the model, which can be useful, but it does mean that you'll be running the analysis on everything, or at least all the mass faces, and that could slow things down. All the roof surfaces, we'll select obviously all the roofs. Very useful for looking at the solar potential of photovoltaics or solar thermal. We'll just have a quick go on user selection here, because we actually want, and let's just try that out to now select some faces ourselves. So we leave that on user selection, bring our cursor back into the model, and you see we've got this plus next to the cursor. And as we as we click on the model, we can start to select faces, and it will, by default, it will keep adding them to our selection. Okay. If you're struggling to find the face you want, click Tab, and it will scroll through possible faces. Okay, so I've added a number of faces there. Let's just leave it at that for now. And at the moment, I'm just selecting some of the existing buildings here. Okay, so that's done. Now, the key thing here is to look up in the top left. Finish or cancel. It's one of those little Revit confirmation menus which, if you forget to activate it, you'll be stuck because it won't let you do anything. So we click on Finish. So we've finished selecting. We get this little little sort of information box, which I'll just get rid of for now. Right, let's look at our settings again here. Sun settings. Click on the little dialog box there. Okay, and we've got a range of settings here. So what this is all about is what period of the year do you want to simulate? And you really need to think carefully here about what each simulation is for. And typically what you need to do is run multiple simulations to test different things. So what I'm going to do is let's just get into one simulation. We'll come back later in the next video and look at a few options. But so what I want to do is look at a multi-day study here. Okay, and we're going to look at several days in the year. So let's set our date range, and let's say that we're interested in winter, perhaps. So if we look on here, there is a default winter solar study here, and we'll use that as a basis. Okay, but let's duplicate it. So this little button here will duplicate that, and let's give it a name that is kind of specific to us. So let's call it forecourt winter solar study. Let's call it winter solar study 1. Okay, so we duplicated that and we've renamed it just so that we know it's something we've created, and we can now change its settings. So you could change the location here, but we'll leave that alone. And let's change this from the 21st of September through to the 21st of March. Okay, so we're looking at the kind of the winter months, winter and autumn months of the year, the kind of typical period when you're perhaps heating your building in the UK, and you're perhaps kind of welcoming a little bit of solar gain. So that's kind of perhaps what we're looking at here. Time, well, let's say we're interested from 8 o'clock in the morning through to, let's say, 5 o'clock in the evening. That's our kind of typical working period of the Arts Tower, I guess. Time interval, this really is just about how frequently do you want the simulation to test? 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. And we'll just leave it on 1 hour for now. Ground plane at level 0, I've got switched off because it's not really much use to us, because our site is set at the true level above sea level, so having a ground plane 100 meters below us is not really much use to us. Okay, so we've done that. We can click on apply and then click on OK if we want to just hide that dialog box. Okay, next one, analysis grid. We just leave that alone for now. You can change that grid setting, but I generally just leave it alone. Next one is about your results. Okay, type, cumulative, peak hour, or average hour. So cumulative will add up all the energy over that period. Then depending on whether you were testing a day, an hour, a month, you can look for peak readings or average readings. So for example, if you'd set that to a day, you could look at the average daily solar radiation. For this study we're going to leave it on cumulative, so we're going to look at the total energy over this period. Units, leave it in kilowatt hour per meter squared. BTU per square feet is an imperial unit. We don't use that anymore. And then style, you've got some default styles which we can customize, but we can do that later. So leave it on the default for now. Just close that down. We're all ready to go now. So let's click on the analyze, and it'll take a few seconds. Oh, and it's, yes, sorry, it's, I think I've dropped my selection of faces, so it's not quite sure how that happened, but it's asking me to select the faces again, so we'll just do that quickly. I think I must have cancelled that. Okay, it's pretty quick. There's our faces. Click on finish up here. And now click analyze again, and you can see that it is working. Right, so we've done that, and we've got this kind of color-coded grid on there. And there is a key, but the key, you can just see it, is there, quite small in the corner. Now, the easiest way to get that key the right scale is just to change the scale actually of your view. So if you imagine 1 to 100 would be a very, very large view of this piece of the Arts Tower forecourt. So if we try that at 1 to 500, and we'll have to click the analyze again. It does lose your results. So we just click on that again. Okay. Results are back. If we now zoom in again, we've got the key. You can click on that and move it around. Position that somewhere sensible. And if we just zoom in a bit and look at that key there, then it tells you a little bit about what that simulation is. So project location, the sun study start and end, date and time. It's cumulative. And then you've got a color-coded key, which, as I said before, you can customize. Now, I've also left my shadows on, as you can see, and they make the results slightly more difficult to see. So I'm going to switch those off. And because every time you change a sun setting, you do have to click the Analyze button again. Right, there we are. It's back again now. And so what we're getting here is a color-coded view of the cumulative energy levels. So if you look, for example, at the front of the Arts Tower here, it gets brighter up to the top right-hand corner, indicating higher energy, and it gets lower as you drop down, and then there's some shadows in the sort of lower areas here. Okay, so that's our first simulation done. And what I'm going to do now is just quickly show you how to put that on a sheet and make a PDF of it. And then we'll come back and we'll look at some of the more in-depth settings that you can use in terms of the view styles. You can close that solar analysis window now. So we want to get this on a sheet. Okay, let's make a new sheet. Go over to Sheets, right click, New Sheet. We'll leave it in the default A1 metric. You can make your own title sheets. Okay, so it's made our sheet. If I just do Windows Tile here and close down some of these other windows, WT, Windows Tile, ZA, Zoom All. There's our sheet, and there's our radiation analysis in that view. So as we've shown before, to get that onto the sheet, you go over into the project browser, click on the view, drag it, and it will now be available on that sheet. Click to position it. And I'll just bring that into the middle slightly. Okay, there's our view. If I just maximize here, and I'll just briefly, while we're here, we'll just talk a little bit about the view settings when you bring them in. So if you notice down here, if I just zoom in here, I've got the title of that view. And if you click on that, you can drag that into your window. So that's quite useful because obviously we're in a live environment. If I rename the sheet, so if I go over here and rename that solar radiation 1, and we'll call that winter cumulative, then the title on the sheet is updated. So everything's linked live. None of this is just sort of text that's typed in. Okay, next thing is, by default Revit, under the titles you get this line. This is all customizable, but it's not really the scope of this module, but I'm sure you could find that out if you wanted to. If we click on our view again and we go to our project browser, properties, sorry, at the top here, that's a title with line. You can just change that to no title, and that title disappeared. And I'll just put that back to title with line. And that's where, if you would customize your own views, you could have that looking any way you like. Now the other thing is slightly odd. If you want to resize this line so it fits on your page, you don't do it by selecting it, which is a bit odd, but that's just how it is. You have to select, hover over your sheet view. That will then activate the end of the line, and you can click and drag that. Never quite know why Revit does it that way, but just seems to be that's how it is. Okay, so there's our view. It's on a sheet. Obviously you could customize that title block, or you could just remove the title block. You could, quite easy. But let's say now we just want to make a PDF. I'll just hit save first. We did cover this last week. Go to the Revit button. You can do it through print. You can actually do it through export as well, but we'll just do it a simple one through print. And we will change that to a PDF. Where do you want it to go? Okay. That should be ready to go. Let's just click OK on that. Yeah, it's just warning you there that it will do a raster print because it's got this sort of scaled colour on it. So that's okay. I'll just call it solar radiation 1. Let's just check it's putting that in the right place. Yep. Okay, click save. So there's the PDF that it's just created. Open that, check that's all okay. That looks fine. Okay, so there's the PDF that we just created, and the resolution is okay. Bearing in mind this is for simulation purposes, it's not for it's not a sort of a visualization. But the thing to do is just check that you can read your key in the window, which we can. Okay, so that we'll end this video here. That's the sort of basics of a solar radiation study in Revit. In the next video, we'll look at some of the more slightly more in-depth tools and settings.